Trump is out here telling Americans, looking them dead in the eye, that every price is down, that groceries are way down, that inflation is almost non-existent, that gas is almost $2, and that he somehow slashed drug prices by 1,000% and 1,200%. And let's be extremely clear about what's happening here. This isn't optimism. This isn't spin. This is a deliberate, industrial-grade rewrite of reality. It's gaslighting on a level that would make a cult leader blush. And the only reason he keeps doing it is because he's banking on you not checking the receipts. He's banking on people being too exhausted, too overwhelmed, too beaten down by the daily chaos to notice that the numbers don't just contradict him, they obliterate him. He stood there with cameras rolling and said every price is down. Meanwhile, the actual consumer price index, the official metric, the thing economists literally rely on to understand the economy, shows prices are up since he returned to office. Not down, not flat, up. Grocery prices? Up. Household energy? Up. Prescription drugs? Up. Inflation? 3%, not 2%, not less than 2, not almost none. 3. That's the number. But Trump thinks if he repeats a lie loudly enough, confident enough, his followers will internalize it as truth. And honestly, it's pathetic. He says he brought gas prices to the lowest level in 2 decades. Reality check, they're over $3 a gallon. The national average hasn't seen $2 since the pandemic crushed demand and half the world was locked inside. But sure, tell Americans that their lying eyes are wrong. Tell them that when they fill up their tank and watch the numbers spin upward, they're imagining it. That's the game he's playing, not leadership, manipulation. And then there's the drug price lie. We cut prices 500%, 700%, 1,200%. Let that sink in. A 100% cut means the price hits 0. A 200% cut means the government is paying you to take medicine. A 1,200% cut, that means they're basically wiring cash into your account if you buy a prescription. That's not just false, it's mathematically impossible. But he throws those numbers out because he knows most people don't have time to stop and do the math. This isn't politics, this is gaslighting. It's an insult to the intelligence of every American adult trying to survive in a real economy with real bills and real financial pressure. If you're watching this and feeling like you're taking crazy pills, you are not alone. Because the truth here isn't subtle, it's not buried, it's not ambiguous. The facts are public. The CPI releases are public. The price data is public. Anyone can see the trajectory. And yet, Trump is insisting, over and over, that reality is whatever he says it is in that moment. Make no mistake, this isn't just lying. This is the construction of an alternate universe, where up is down, numbers don't matter, and reality bends to the will of one man. And the terrifying part? He expects millions of people to follow him into that universe without asking a single question.
And here's where the whole thing gets even more absurd, because we're not dealing with vague disagreements or interpretive disputes. We're dealing with numbers, hard numbers, the kind that don't bend, don't care about ideology, and don't magically shrink just because Trump needs a talking point for a rally. Let's start with the claim that every price is down. Not some prices, not a few categories, every price. He said it multiple times, confidently, with that trademark bravado that for some reason is supposed to substitute for accuracy. But if you pull up the actual CPI data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the same data set every administration uses, the average level of prices in September was 1.7% higher than when he took office. That's not an opinion, that's the literal official record. So when Trump says prices have fallen substantially, the only thing falling is his credibility. And let's get into groceries, because this is where the whole gaslighting gets personal. Grocery prices are one of the most tangible inflation pain points for Americans. People know what they spent last month versus this month. They know what eggs cost. They know what chicken costs. They know what bread costs. You cannot lie your way past someone's receipt. And yet Trump looked right into the camera and said groceries are way down. Not slightly down, not trending down, way down. But USDA and BLS data tell a very different story. Food-at-home inflation is up roughly 2.7% year over year. Month to month, some categories spiked. Eggs dipped, sure, but poultry, bakery goods, snacks, beverages, cereals, up. Even the broad category groupings, meats, dairy, produce, saw increases. The idea that everything is down except beef is not only false, but provably so.
You can literally pull up the CPI table and scroll item by item. Apples up, chicken up, pasta up, snacks up, sauces up.
There is not one universe, not one, where grocery prices have plummeted under Trump. And the fact that he repeatedly insists otherwise tells you exactly what he thinks of the American public, that you won't check. Now let's talk inflation. Trump keeps insisting that we have almost no inflation. He says we're at 2% or even less than 2%, as if the number is a rounding error instead of a monthly data point released by an independent agency. But inflation in September? 3%. Inflation in August? Also 3%. Inflation in July? Just below 3%. And the trend matters because inflation has been accelerating for 5 consecutive months. So when he says we're at almost no inflation, he's not just bending numbers, he's reversing the direction of reality. The number he cites doesn't match the number on his own administration's public website. Imagine being so committed to the lie that you're willing to contradict your own agencies, your own public data, your own documented numbers.
But then we get to the gas price claim, which might be the most aggressively disconnected from reality of all of them. Gasoline prices have plummeted to the lowest in 2 decades. Look, gas prices are one of the most visible, unavoidable price indicators in the economy. They are literally on giant signs on every major intersection in America. You can't hide gas prices. You can't pretend gas is $2 when every American passes 5 gas stations a day showing 3 something. The national average is about $3.08. You know what the gas price was the day he took office in January? $3.12. So when Trump says it's way down, what he actually means is down 4 cents. A 4-cent decrease is not a plummet. A 4-cent decrease is not a 2-decade low. A 4-cent decrease is a rounding error. But Trump knows people aren't checking the differences, they're checking how they feel filling up. So he tries to sell the fantasy that he single-handedly slashed prices. Meanwhile, the Energy Information Administration says Americans are spending a smaller share of their disposable income on gas, but that's because incomes rose, not because gas hit $2. Least of your paycheck is not the same as lowest price. But he rolls them into one because precision isn't the point. Persuasion is. Now, the most insulting part of this entire inflation charade is the drug price claim. He said he cut drug prices 200%, 300%, 500%, 700%, 1,000%, 1,200%. I want to walk through this slowly because the man is counting on people not thinking about the math. A 100% cut brings a price to zero. If something costs $100 and you cut it by 100%, it costs $0. A 200% cut means the government literally hands you another $100 to take the drug. So what exactly does a 1,200% cut look like? The government backs up a Brinks truck to your driveway and hands you $1,200 for every $100 of medication? This is the level of nonsense he expects people to internalize without question. He throws out numbers like confetti because the numbers aren't meant to be accurate. They're meant to overwhelm. They're meant to create an emotional impression. Trump made drugs cheap. Facts be damned. But here's the reality that Trump desperately needs to hide. While a few pharmaceutical companies did voluntarily lower the price of certain high-profile drugs, the vast majority of medications saw no such change. Over-the-counter meds? Up. Chronic condition meds? Up. Specialty drugs? Up. Insurance premiums? Up. Out-of-pocket maxes? Up. Nothing about that suggested 1,200% cut. What it suggests is a president so desperate for a victory lap that he'll invent numbers out of thin air just to say he delivered. And then we return to his favorite talking point, Biden's inflation. He said Biden had the highest inflation in the history of our country. That's, how do I put this gently? Completely false. Inflation peaked at 9.1% under Biden. Yes, high, undeniably high. But the highest in history? Not even close. The highest was nearly 24% in 1920. Inflation during Jimmy Carter's presidency? Higher than Biden's. Inflation in the post-war years? Higher. Trump's claim is not only historically illiterate, it's deliberately misleading, because he knows the phrase highest in history sounds terrifying, but saying highest since the early 1980s doesn't have the same punch. So he lies. Again. And here's the kicker. Biden handed Trump an inflation rate of 3% when he left office, the exact same number Trump now insists is almost none. But if Biden delivered that number, Trump calls it catastrophic. If he delivers it, he calls it a miracle. You cannot have it both ways, unless, of course, your strategy is simply to say whatever benefits you in that moment. Truth, optional. But the most revealing claim of all might be his statement that energy prices are way down, because the CPI shows household energy prices, electricity, natural gas, home heating, are up over 6%. Up, not down, not flat, up. He loves to use the word energy because it's vague. It can mean gas at the pump, it can mean crude oil prices, it can mean electricity bills. And because it's vague, he can twist it however he wants. If gas is slightly cheaper year over year, he uses that. If oil futures dip, he uses that. If nothing is going down, he just says it is. Precision is the enemy of propaganda. What we're left with is a man standing in front of the country insisting that the sky is green and counting on millions of people to nod along. And the more he repeats it, the more dangerous it becomes, because repetition creates certainty. Certainty creates belief. Belief creates loyalty. And loyalty built on lies is the most powerful tool an authoritarian has. What makes all of this even more alarming is that none of it exists in isolation. This isn't some random week where Trump woke up confused about numbers. This isn't a slip of the tongue. This isn't poor phrasing. This is a pattern, one that stretches back years. Years of systematically replacing reality with whatever story best suits him in the moment. And if you look closely, the inflation lies fit neatly into the exact same framework he used for COVID, for unemployment, for crowd sizes, for the deficit, for election results, for literally any area of public life where facts were inconvenient. The consistency is the tell. He doesn't accidentally misstate data. He deliberately manufactures a world where facts only matter when they serve him. Think about how he handled the early days of the pandemic. He said the virus would disappear like a miracle. He said there were 15 cases and soon 0. He said the tests were too sensitive. He said doctors were inflating numbers for money. Every step of the way, reality contradicted him, and every step of the way, instead of adjusting to the truth, he tried to adjust the truth to him. It's the same strategy now with inflation. The numbers say one thing, Trump says another. And because his supporters have been conditioned for years to trust him over verifiable data, the lie spreads faster than the correction ever could. Or take the unemployment rate. He regularly claimed he built the greatest economy in history. Except the numbers, from jobs growth to wage increases to GDP, never supported that statement. Presidents before him oversaw stronger expansions, more robust hiring, higher real wage growth. But it didn't matter. The message was the message. The truth was irrelevant. As long as he said it loudly enough and confidently enough, his followers would repeat it as gospel. So when he stands there now claiming he cut drug prices by 1,200%, it's not a new phenomenon. It's muscle memory. Then there's the deficit. During his presidency, the deficit exploded, ballooning by trillions. Yet he insisted he was bringing it down, cleaning up, fixing what he inherited. The documented numbers showed the opposite. And when that contradiction became unavoidable, he simply pivoted to something else. He does not correct. He distracts. He does not refine. He bulldozes. That's the pattern. The inflation lies also mirror his strategy from the 2020 election. Deny, deflect, declare victory regardless of evidence. Back then, he said he won by a landslide. Courts disagreed. His own advisors disagreed. His AG disagreed. His DHS cybersecurity officials disagreed. But because the truth was incompatible with his ego, he created a parallel reality where he was a winner wronged by the universe. Fast forward to today, inflation is 3%, groceries are up, household energy is up, gas is not $2, and yet he declares the opposite with the same level of certainty. The consistency is the message. The lie must not sound hesitant. It must sound absolute. His rhetorical tactic is always the same. Take a complex topic with measurable data, warp it beyond recognition, and then present the warped version with overwhelming confidence. Not confidence based on fact, confidence based on dominance. It's not about persuading with logic. It's about dominating the truth until people give up trying to resist it. Inflation data becomes just another battlefield where reality is optional. And there's another part of the pattern: projection. Every lie he tells is usually framed as an accusation against someone else. When he lies about grocery prices being way down, who does he blame? Democrats. It's a con job, he says. A con job. From a man fabricating numbers humans cannot physically produce. When he claims inflation is almost non-existent, who does he say is lying about it? Economists? Analysts? The media? Anyone who works with real data?
He projects the very behavior he engages in because it shifts the scrutiny away. If he lies first and accuses others of lying, the conversation becomes a fog of confusion where the average person struggles to discern what is true. And confusion is his ecosystem. He thrives when the public feels overwhelmed and uncertain. That's when the loudest voice in the room, his, takes over by default. Another pattern, emotional manipulation through simplicity. Inflation is complicated. Price dynamics are complicated. Supply chains, energy markets, food processing costs, global demand, complicated. So he distills it into childishly simple terms. Every price is down. Inflation is gone. Gas is $2. It's the same strategy he used when discussing foreign policy. We'll just take the oil. Trade. Tariffs make other countries pay us. Or healthcare. It'll be easy. We'll get a better plan. The simpler the lie, the harder it is for people to fact-check in the moment. But the inflation narrative exposes something deeper. Trump doesn't want to fix economic problems. He wants to fix public perception of economic problems. Solving inflation requires policy. Monetary tightening, supply chain reforms, strategic petroleum releases, tariff adjustments, wage modeling. But claiming you solved inflation requires nothing more than a microphone and an ego, and one of those is much easier than the other.
Watch how he behaves at rallies. He doesn't say, we're working to stabilize prices. He says, we fixed it. He doesn't say, we're monitoring volatility in the energy sector. He says, gas is $2. It's always past tense, always solved, always perfect. He talks as if he's narrating a fantasy victory lap because many supporters are listening emotionally, not analytically. If he says the problem is solved, they get to feel like it's solved, and feelings are often more politically powerful than facts. There's also the authoritarian pattern, redefine reality, punish dissent. He has already primed his base to distrust economists, statisticians, journalists, academics, basically anyone who could check his claims. If the CPI contradicts him, then the CPI is rigged. If the gas price contradicts him, then the gas stations are lying. If grocery prices contradict him, then the media is manipulating receipts. The point isn't to win an argument, the point is to invalidate independent sources of truth until the only reliable narrator left is him. This tactic mirrors every strongman leader throughout history. Create suspicion of all institutions except the leader, then flood the zone with so much misinformation that people eventually surrender their critical thinking because keeping up becomes exhausting. Once that psychological exhaustion sets in, the leader can say anything, literally anything, and a portion of the population will nod in agreement because the alternative is accepting that they've been lied to for years. Cognitive dissonance becomes loyalty. And let's be extremely clear. The inflation lies are not just about inflation. They are about control. If Trump can convince millions of people that prices are down, even when their grocery bill says otherwise, that's power. Not policy power, narrative power. And narrative power is the foundation of political dominance. In Trump's worldview, if you control perception, you control reality. If you control reality, you control the vote. And if you control the vote, you control accountability. This behavior also connects directly to his handling of scandals. Every time he gets caught, whether it's mishandling classified documents, pressuring election officials, or inventing crime waves, the response is always the same: deny, attack, reverse roles. Inflation is just the latest arena where the script remains unchanged. He gets caught lying about inflation numbers. He calls Democrats liars. He gets caught misrepresenting gas prices. He calls the media dishonest. He gets caught throwing out mathematically impossible drug price numbers. He claims experts don't understand math. It's all part of the same cycle. Trump lies, Trump denies, Trump accuses, Trump claims victory. And beneath all of it is the deeper pattern of self-interest. Trump doesn't lie about inflation because he's confused about data.
He lies about inflation because admitting the truth would undermine the image he's trying to project, the image of the economic savior. He has tied his political identity to the idea that he alone understands the economy. He alone fixes everything instantly. He alone brings America prosperity. If inflation rises, if groceries become more expensive, if gas ticks upward, if drug prices strain families, then the myth of the infallible economic genius cracks, and he cannot allow that. So the numbers must be bent. Reality must be stitched together like a patchwork quilt held up just far enough away to look convincing. Another pattern is that Trump never adjusts the lie when confronted with facts. He escalates it. If someone says inflation is 3%, he says it's 1%. If someone says drug prices are unchanged, he says they're cut 500%. If someone says gas is $3, he says it's 2%. It's escalation as a rhetorical weapon. If his lie is big enough, bold enough, and ridiculous enough, it becomes harder to debunk because people assume no one would make up something so outrageous. That's the strategy. Outrageousness creates credibility for those predisposed to believe him.
And finally, there's the pattern of immunity from consequences. His entire political career has taught him that lying carries no price with his base. None. Not after crowd size lies, not after COVID lies, not after economic lies, not after election lies. The inflation lies are simply the newest installment in a long-running series where truth is optional and loyalty is mandatory. And as long as there is no internal penalty for dishonesty, there is no external limit to it. What happens if this keeps going? If millions of people start believing that inflation is whatever Trump says it is instead of what the numbers show? That's not just a political disagreement. That's the slow erosion of shared reality. And once a country loses a shared reality, everything else starts to collapse with it. Because if a leader can convince people that their grocery bill is lying to them, that the CPI is lying to them, that economists are lying to them, that gas price signs are lying to them, then there is no truth left, only loyalty. And that's the endgame. Strip away the guardrails of objective reality and replace them with a single voice that defines the truth on command. When Trump says inflation is way down, he's not just misinforming. He's testing how far he can push the boundary. If he can get away with telling you something you can disprove by walking into a supermarket, then he can get away with anything. That's the real danger. It's not the lie itself, it's the permission structure the lie creates. Because once people start accepting obvious falsehoods just to stay aligned with the leader, democracy stops functioning. There's no accountability without facts. There's no informed vote without facts. There's no self-governance without facts.
Look at what happens in authoritarian countries. The economy can be falling off a cliff, and the leader still goes on TV and announces record growth. People know it's false. They feel the pain every day, but over time, something breaks. People get tired, they get numb, they stop questioning. The lie becomes easier than the fight. And suddenly, the government doesn't need censorship or force. They've already defeated the public's will to resist. That's what Trump is recreating in the US, piece by piece, lie by lie. And here's the terrifying part. Inflation is the perfect battlefield for authoritarian messaging because people don't have time to analyze macroeconomic trends when they're struggling to make ends meet. Inflation frustrates, it overwhelms, it drains people emotionally. That's exactly when a strongman steps in and says, "I fixed it. Trust me." Even when nothing is fixed, especially when nothing is fixed, because confusion is the environment where lies grow the fastest. If Trump can redefine inflation, he can redefine recession. If he can redefine recession, he can redefine legitimacy. If he can redefine legitimacy, he can redefine election results. It's a chain reaction, and it starts small, with groceries, with gas, with drug prices, because those are the lies that seem harmless, but they're not harmless. They are the scaffolding for bigger lies to climb on. Make no mistake, this is about power, not economic power, narrative power. If he owns the narrative, he owns the country's sense of what's real and what's not. And if he owns that, then the next time he says, "I won," regardless of the result, millions of people will believe him without hesitation because they no longer trust their own eyes. They trust him. And that is why it matters. Why fact-checking isn't nitpicking, why calling out lies isn't partisanship, why holding the line on reality is not optional. Because once you surrender reality, you surrender democracy.
So the stakes aren't whether inflation is 2% or 3%. The stakes are whether Americans will continue living in the real world or allow one man to drag them into his alternate universe, where truth is subordinate to his ego and facts are whatever he needs them to be in that moment.